The war between Russia and Ukraine has now entered a phase vastly different from the early years of the conflict. If 2022 and 2023 were marked by rapid maneuvers, major offensives, and dramatic changes on the map, then late 2025 to early 2026 reveals another face of modern warfare, a relatively stable frontline yet unceasing military pressure. This is the phase where national endurance, logistical depth, and strategic consistency become the deciding factors. Geographically, the front line stretches long, from the Sumy and Kharkiv regions in the north, through Donetsk in the east to Zaporizhia in the south. On the map, changes appear minimal, yet on the ground, conditions are far from calm. Each day sees artillery duels, drone strikes, and limited engagements that continually erode the strength of both sides. This is no longer a war about who moves fastest, but about who can best endure long-term pressure. In this context, Russia appears to have adjusted its approach. Moscow is no longer pursuing large-scale offensives that are high-risk and costly both politically and militarily. Instead, Russia's current strategy emphasizes incremental steps, securing already controlled territory, and constant pressure on sectors deemed most critical. This approach may not be spectacular, but it is relatively stable and sustainable. A major focus for Russia at present is in northeastern Ukraine, particularly around Sumy and Kharkiv. In this area, Russia has openly stated its goal of creating a buffer zone. From Moscow's viewpoint, this move is defensive, aiming to push Ukrainian artillery and drone threats away from Russian territory. Regardless of the political debate, militarily, this concept shows long-term thinking and strategic caution. On the Eastern Front, particularly in Donetsk, the war remains the most intense and bloody. This region has been the main center of gravity since the conflict's outset. Russia continues to work on slowly expanding and securing its control, not through large frontal assaults, but through the gradual grinding down of Ukrainian defenses. Such an approach takes time, but is often more effective in a prolonged war of positions. Meanwhile, in southern Ukraine, Zaporizhia remains a sensitive strategic area. Although no significant map changes are occurring, the Russian presence here has a major impact. The stability of the southern front limits Ukraine's room for maneuver and prevents a repeat of the large-scale offensives seen in earlier phases. In many ways, a strong defensive position gives Russia a strategic advantage. The major question that arises concerns personnel. Is Russia sending troops back to the front line? The answer is yes, but in a manner different from the start of the war. Russia is not returning to massive, large-scale mobilization. Instead, the Kremlin relies on a system of continuous recruitment, military contracts, rotation of combat units, and the utilization of a broad personnel reserve. This pattern allows Russia to maintain a flow of troops to the front without causing major political shocks domestically. This is an aspect often overlooked but crucial in modern warfare. On the other side, Ukraine faces challenges no less severe. Kyiv must defend a long front line with more limited resources. Ukraine relies on a combination of layered defenses, intensive drone use, and precision strikes against Russian logistical targets. This strategy is effective for slowing and disrupting the enemy, but is also highly dependent on a steady supply of weapons and ammunition from abroad. In this context, the difference in approach between the two sides is increasingly clear. Ukraine is fighting with a focus on defending sovereignty and maximizing international support. Russia, in contrast, appears to rely more on its own internal capacity. Despite facing heavy economic sanctions, Russia is still able to maintain its military-industrial production, keep supply lines open, and support combat operations across multiple fronts. The world's reaction to these developments tends to be divided. Western nations, particularly the United States and the European Union, continued to condemn Russia's actions and strengthen support for Ukraine. Military, financial, and diplomatic aid continues to flow. However, outside the Western Bloc, many countries view this conflict more pragmatically, as a war unlikely to end in the near term. International organizations like the United Nations also highlight the global impact of this conflict, particularly concerning food security and global economic stability. Attacks on port infrastructure and logistical routes in the Black Sea cause widespread concern, especially for developing countries dependent on wheat imports. Similarly, pushes for peace negotiations have yet to produce a real breakthrough. Both sides still feel they have strong reasons to continue the war. Ukraine hopes international pressure and Western aid can shift the balance. Russia, on the other hand, seems confident that time is on its side as long as the front line remains controlled and internal stability is maintained. In a situation like this, the war transforms into a contest of endurance. It's not just about who has more advanced weapons, but about who can sustain the war for the longest time. Economic, demographic, industrial, and public psychology factors become just as important as tactics on the battlefield.